Yes, thank you for your abbreviated version of the story of the Buddha. It will take a long time to get through much more. Just an answer to one of your questions. How did Buddha know what he was looking at when he'd see things he had never experienced before? An old man, a sick man, death, and finally a mendicant. I think the standard version of the story is that his charioteer explains these things to him. Uh, and it's perfectly natural that he would not have seen any of this before, giving the sheltered life. But the charioteer, of course, knew what was going on. And of course, you brought up or alluded to anyway many other questions, and I think it's good to question, stories like this and to learn from them as much as we can. But I'll just leave the story of the Buddha where you left it and ask if anyone else has any questions.
I think the question about the Buddha's state of mind when he left the palace. Now, of course, we can't know what it is, but I think some kind of commentary on that would be interesting.
Yeah, I had a sheltered life myself. I grew up Catholic. I had Sisters of Christian Charity from the ages 5 to 14. Um, and I actually experienced a lot of funerals during that time because I was an altar boy. And because, the nuns thought I was maybe the smartest kid in class, they always let me go and be the altar boy at these funerals during school hours when the funerals, often did occur. And I also accompanied the priest when he made his rounds during what was called the Home of the Incurables, which is an unfortunate moniker. But all sorts of people with, different hopeless maladies were there. And we would go around and one by one, the priest would, give them communion. And I would hold the paten, that platter underneath it to catch any crumbs as you would do during Mass. So I saw a lot of old age, sickness, and death. Um, by the time I was out of elementary school, but that didn't prop me on any spiritual path, unfortunately. When I was in high school, I really started to raise hell as much as I could. So that's where the Buddhist path and mine, diverged. But I look back on that and wonder what effect, maybe it somehow had on me, maybe with a long delayed response. Um, and Buddha's response, of course, he was very high class, was immediate. So, what was his state of mind when he first ventured forth? Was it simply curiosity? Maybe he had heard of suffering. He had an education, after all, and part of that education would have been texts, that had something to do with people getting old and dying. And he probably knew that he was really being confined, and he really wanted to know, what's going on out here. So maybe that was his state of mind, something like that, I would think. Um, does anyone have any other questions about this or uh, anything else? Well, Tom, you might as well ask one of the questions you didn't get a chance to, if you want. You have to unmute yourself.
Um, so, in the various Buddhist schools, uh, what are all the different interpretations of waking up? Is this a long, arduous process? Is it a shorter process? And, what are really the essential forms?
I don't know that they particularly differ in terms of dogma amongst the various schools. Um, you know, most of these schools were monastic. They assumed that the practitioners were monastic. Um,
Um, I'm thinking that many religions have a good deal of mythology attached to them, and or else oral tradition. And I don't know what the case is with Buddha.
yes, there are a lot of traditions and different versions um, in the major schools of Buddhism of what Buddha's teaching is actually pointing to. Uh, Theravadan, which is the earlier school, and then Mahayana Buddhism. If you read, the great Mahayana sutras, it's hard for me to imagine anyone delivering these teachings, Buddha or not. They are extensive, they are elaborate, they have a very sublime view of the cosmos. Um, Whereas, in Theravadan teachings are really much more concerned with ethics. Not that Mahayana neglects ethics, but there are different approaches. And tomorrow, Zen Master Hae is teaching a class on the Mahayana vision and the online Sangha. And actually, it's the second of two classes. I don't know if you uh, can you join just for the second class? I don't know if you can or not. It's a very small fee, which will be.
Well, it will cost you, and it's not a small fee.
I'm sorry.
It's not. It's not a.
It's not a small fee. Okay, good. Maybe it's big bucks. I don't know. Um, and she's taught a class recently at the Kansas Zen Center. So we are a Mahayana school, um, and the sutras that we would teach at the Kansas Zen Center are Mahayana. We do it specifically, but Zen Master Sung San's comprehensive book, The Compass of Zen, covers all of the different forms of Buddhism, and it actually begins with Theravada, and so you can get all of that teaching from Zen Master Sung San's The Compass of Zen. And yes, you're right. There's a lot of variety amongst all of the schools that were still developing for about 1,000 years after Buddha's death. Uh, and it's quite an enterprise, to become familiar with even a major portion of that. But we stay with our school's teaching. We're a Zen school, so we emphasize certain things in our teachings. I know that's a very general answer to your question. A longer answer would take weeks. So, are there any other questions?
I have a question. I was lately I've been thinking about ways in which I get sort of distracted from being here, ways that I get sort of lost in thought, and I was I was thinking about the klesha. Is the kleshas? Is that the term? I was wondering if you could kind of remind me, remind us, or remind me what they are. And I know this would probably be a very long answer, but it is. But maybe just say something about kind of what each of the things, what each of the kleshas are.
Yeah, the different lists of kleshas. The longest list that I remember seeing is 16 different states of mind. You might say, um, but you can divide. So klesha means literally something like defilement. Um, something that you might say smudges your mind. um, but some we would say are emotional rather than intellectual. And you can if you observe these moments that you have various kinds of mental or emotional disturbances, you might say, the kleshas, you can make up your own specific list. And that would be much more profitable than, consulting whatever you can find online. What are the 6 kleshas, the 10 kleshas, the 16 kleshas? So the kleshas are the subject of our second vow, which I've talked about this before. We now translate the second vow as delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. It used to be in the quantum school of Zen for many years, even decades. Passions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. So passions would be emotional, and delusions would be more mental. Of course, these states of mind kind of influence each other. For some reason, we decided to change the translation of kleshas from passions to delusions, because some of us thought that passions are endless, we vow to cut through them all. It means you shouldn't be passionate about anything. And we certainly should be passionate about practice. So let's just remove that possible misunderstanding completely and go to the mental side of the kleshas, which maybe you could summarize in the word delusions of various sorts. Make up your personal list of kleshas. If you do that, I'd like to hear what they are.
Sure.
Not that I'm prying into your klesha life.
Oh, be happy to, yes, share what I come up with.
Sure. It would help me. It would be enlightening.
Sure.
That's fine. I'll be glad to be the klesha coordinator.
No, thank
Zen.
oh, thank you.
And Zen Master Sung San used to use the word smudge. Why do you smudge your mind? That would refer to a klesha also. It's not a word we use much anymore, smudge. But it's very expressive, actually. Why do you smudge your mind? That means, why do you let it get dirty? So wipe, wipe, wipe. Don't make dust. The poem that the 6th patriarch had to respond to. The mind is like a clear mirror. You have to keep it clean. That's the original poem. Yeah, does anyone have any other idea of the one word that we maybe should use that would we could retranslate the second vow, anytime. It would only require a majority of the teachers to agree to it. I don't think we'll ever do it. But we went from passions to delusions. Is there one word that kind of brings those together in any way, like the ultimate klesha? That's the word for that. I mean, you could say the kleshas, but nobody knows what kleshas are. Kleshas are endless. We vow to cut through them all, and it is cut. So that's good. So it would be good if this word goes with cut. It's cut off. Cut through is okay. I don't know. Cut through. Maybe it should be cut off anyway. I think that's the idea. It's like boom, and it's gone. So I'll leave all of you with that question. Please email me your answers if you'd like, or any thoughts that you may have on the kleshas. Not that I'm prying, and it'll be completely confidential. So I think we are, yes, come to the time limit here. So thank you all very much for your practice. I think I've kind of confessed to this before. When I'm practicing and I'm doing a mantra, Kwanse Boso or some other one, I do 8 in one breath, and for each eightfold repetition, I look at one person on the screen, and that really helps me stay on track. Instead of chanting in general, no, it's one by one by one by one by one, and I just love doing that with you. So thank you very much.